Hello everyone, it's Edwina and I'm here to show you my deserted island journal. I took part in Nik the Booksmith's challenge and we were given 4 items, and one was paper, which I chose coffee dyed paper. I chose needle and thread, and I chose pearl embroidery thread because I knew I'd do some stitching, and I chose brown because it seems to be the colour of the moment, my favourite colour of the moment. It changes, but brown, glue, and I chose Fabri-tac, absolutely great glue, and I've really been surprised how well it's behaved on paper. I mean, I've always used it on fabric, but not so much on paper, and it really served me well. And I chose distressed ink walnut stain, and we get the dauber with it. So they were my 4 givens. Now, of course, I had to decide on my 4 chosen items, and that could be, well, more or less anything to make a journal with, I guess. So I think the easiest one for me was the obvious, like scissors and oh, I'm missing out. No, I'm not. And lace, of course. How can I not choose lace? Now, the problem with choosing lace, and this is the one I chose, look how gorgeous it is. It's actually a cluny lace. It's quite wide. You can only have a yard. So, I was a bit, yard? What am I going to do with a yard? It's not enough, and it wasn't enough. I almost wish I could have given something else up and had 2 yards. You know me and my lace. I mean, it's a really beautiful lace, but I don't know, it was really hard to use it in ways that I felt showed it off, to be honest. Never mind. So, that was lace. And then I was able to choose 12 by 12 scrapbooking paper. Now, my dear lovely friend Lisa, hi Lisa, as you know, I was out of the Ladies' Diary, a Ladies' Diary collection. Oh, well, I had scraps left. Well, my dear friend Lisa sent me the whole collection, the whole paper collection for my birthday, and I was overjoyed because I do love this paper collection. And so I chose this one from the pack. You only allowed 1 piece. It was a hard choice. There was another one that I was wavering between, but I went for this one in the end. Now, I chose this because it had really nice images, and but it had black and white images, and it also had text. I felt I could do some collage, play around with some collage with the variety. Now, I approached this journal making exactly the same way I approach all my journals. I pick a theme and then I go with it. Well, this was my theme, and I know, I mean, there was some fantastic journals have been made in this challenge. I've been watching them, and people are absolutely amazing, and a lot of them have taken on board the idea of being stranded on a deserted island, and they've drawn maps, and they've talked about the vegetation and what was there available to eat, and they've drawn pictures, and They've really embraced the idea of being deserted on a deserted island. I couldn't go there. Nope. No. Um, it was quite, the idea of it was so problematical to me that I could dream about it and it would be perfect, but nah, I couldn't produce a journal that was about it, no. So, my journal is themed. And the reason, I mean, this is a recurring thing. If you've been watching my creativity since I started producing videos, I've always taken people as my subject, especially vintage images of women, mainly. And this is because many years ago I used to do sketching and drawing of the human figure. I used to go to life classes, and it was the only thing I really wanted to draw. I did collage, and it's always my go-to thing. I really want to, people are what I want to draw. Now there are occasions when I have gone outside my comfort zone, and I've produced butterfly journals and unicorn journals, but they were just one-offs. But you know what I think about the people, women particularly. So that explains that. And finally, I chose a pen. Yep. This was, I was reluctant almost to choose a pen. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to use it really, but I'm glad I did. This is a fine line drawing pen actually. It's water and fade proof. And there you go, that's the one I chose. So there are my 4 chosens: the paper, the scissors, the gorgeous lace and the pen. Okay, so I had so much fun, absolutely loved it. I really enjoyed myself. Now I started this challenge just after Nik announced it, because I was so excited by the idea of having limited resources to create a journal and what I could do with those resources. And I had so much fun. However, I worked on it from on and off since Nik announced it until yesterday, and the closing date is tomorrow, the 17th. So I thought I'd better wind it up and get, you know, finished and do a video. There was a bit of a disaster yesterday. Yeah, I'll tell you about that. Which sort of spoilt the whole thing in the end, but never mind. And here we have it. This is my deserted island journal. I didn't have a book cover or any card or anything, so in order to make the cover I glued several sheets of coffee stained paper together and created it with I mean, it's quite sturdy, the paper, once it's dried. I also did the spine, but I actually added more paper to the spine to give it that extra strength. And this, what I would have loved to have been able to do is had enough lace so that I could have wrapped it in lace. That would have been my ideal. But luckily I still had some thread left over, so I plaited the thread, and I've used that as a tie to go around it. Okay, so now front cover. This was easy. I picked an image and I picked some text and I got some coffee dyed paper and I did a sort of a thrilly thing with it. I got the lace. I made that, which isn't brilliant. It's a bit sort of messy, but I tried. And then I made a lace flower, and I did some embroidery stitches. Not brilliant, but I did some stitching. And then I even at the bottom there, I put the label from the top of the paper, a lady's diary collection. So that's my front cover. So let's go inside. Now, there was supposed to be 2 signatures. I worked on 2 signatures with the aim of there being a book with 2 signatures. That was my plan. So I also made ephemera, and this is the envelope I made. I'm quite used to making envelopes, so it was no stretch for me to just make an envelope using coffee dyed paper. And I put a sheet of paper in there, and I took a piece of the scrapbooking paper. Oh yes, I should show you, shouldn't I, while I'm showing this. I have up here somewhere. Let me show you. I kept it. There we go. This is what I have left. This is what I have left of that 12 by 12 sheet of paper. And I think if I could have done, I would have used these as well, and that's why I kept them. Yeah. It was a valuable resource. Of course, one sheet wasn't enough, but I made the most of it. I hope you'll agree. I made the most of it. So here we have the little tuck. Oh yes, stitching. Now, stitching formed a huge part of what I did. I'd forgotten how much I liked embroidery. I'm not brilliant at it, and you know, an embroiderer watching this video would be horrified at my stitching, but I like doing it, so that's okay, isn't it? So there's a little tuck there. Right, cutting down the papers. Now, I actually prefer to tear the papers rather than cut them, even though I had scissors, because I like the effect. I like the effect, and I edged them with the walnut stain. Boy, I used a lot of walnut stain. I've still got stained fingers, even though I've washed my hands I don't know how many times, but it'll come off eventually. So yes, that was my preference. There were lots of bits left over, so I wove them, and I wove a pocket and just stitched around it. Now this is the first of my tags. Story behind this, and I've used lace at the tab. I thought it was a shame. I used the minutest piece of lace, but it was a shame. And rounded corners, I actually just eyeballed them and did them. I didn't do all of them, but you know, not bad. I think they're just, you know, I didn't have my little corner punch, which I love, so I just did it like that. Right, now let me talk about this. I had fun. It was like I went back to my childhood, and I had such fun folding paper and cutting it into shapes. And this is the huge one that I made, which was good for nothing really. I took a sheet of paper and I cut it into a square by folding it, and then I folded it again and again until I was down to a triangle, and then I cut into it, and it was fun. It was just fun. There was just no rhyme or reason to my cutting. I just was having myself a lot of fun. And I didn't make one. I didn't make two. I didn't make three even. I just kept going. I was having so much fun, which was a bit ridiculous because I realised I was wasting paper. Paper was also a valuable and precious resource. So that's a smaller one I made, which was more sensible size, but I think this might have even been one of the first I made, but I've only got the 2 left over, because what I did in the end, when I had all this cut up paper, I decided, initially I was going to do stenciling with it. That was the plan. I was just going to use it as a stencil, but because I had so many, I decided to cut them up and glue them onto tags, and I thought it was quite effective. So we have a pull out here. I've done a wee bit of stitching here. Don't look too closely at it. And we have another small tag and some more originally stencils, but I just glued it on. And then on this page, no, it's not, it's a half page. On this page we have some stitching. And what I used to do with the stitching, because paper can be quite fragile, I used to put 2 pieces of paper together, do the stitching, ink round it, and then glue it to the paper. And that, to me, look, don't look at that, because it's not straight, it's crooked. That became my thing about the stitching, because I didn't want to tear paper too much. Well, actually I didn't really. It worked. It seemed to work. This is my 5 folded paper flower, which I love, and they were great fun to make. And what I did is I was able to draw circles by using, the blue was more useful, by using this. This is my circle maker, and draw around it, and then I stitch in the centre and glued it to the page. Here's a bit of collage from one of the image. I love the contrast between the coffee dyed paper and the walnut stain. I thought that was really great. Now in this journal there's loads of space for writing, even more after the disaster. So there's loads. Now this was fun, couching, and I thought, well, what am I going to use to do couching? And what I've done with this one is I've taken a strip of paper and I've folded it and twisted it, and then I've laid it down, and then I've stitched over it and done the couching. Now it's not brilliant, but I think it just adds a nice bit of decoration to the journal. Again, I used to love my ruffles, so I just did paper ruffles. Now, buttons. They were easy to make, and fortunately in my thread I had a round circle that I could use. It was slightly too big, so I just trimmed it down, and they're not perfect circles. Some of them are a bit out of shape, but I stuck 2 pieces of paper together. There's some faux stitching around there with my pen, and then I glued it onto some more paper and made a belly band. There you go. That was fun. That was really great fun. And here's another tag. This is a bigger one, and as you can see, one of my paper, I must glue that down, one of my paper cutouts That's what they are, paper cutouts. Okay, so more stitching and more paper. This is couching as well, and this is more folding of paper and twisting. We have more stitching. You'll find a lot of stitching. I was enjoying it so much. I haven't done embroidery, well, I can't remember, for years. I used to do quite a bit. I'm not a great embroiderer, I don't claim to be. I just like doing it, it's fun. And I know this looks kind of plain with the coffee dyed and the brown walnut stain and the brown thread, but I just liked the combination. I hope you do too. So, keeps going out of frame. More paper ruffling, and here, oh, and again with that circle I put it on half and then was able to cut round it. I actually didn't immediately think of doing that, and so some of them are a bit weird where I tried to do it on my own just by just eyeballing it, but then I got the hang of it by using that. And this is flip up, so you've got loads of room for writing. Ah, look at my gorgeous lace. Look at it. And I put it on back to front. Ha! Sorry. Oh dear. Never mind. And I did a bit of stitching in order to secure it down and glued it. More paper ruffling, and in here this is a pocket with another one of my tags, and this is the centre of my signature, and we have a couple of hearts that I cut up and glued the string to, and they dangle down because I thought that was something a bit different. I didn't make enough tag. I went overboard with making loads of pockets and tucks, etc., and then realised, oh, I haven't got anything to put in them. So when I made the tags, etc., I made enough, but I didn't have enough to. So some of the pockets are empty, but that's okay. That's okay. Right, what we have here is flip down, loads of space for writing, and I used another piece of scrapbooking paper. We have another tag which goes in behind, and then the images. Now I didn't have enough of the scrapbooking paper to make to make collages for everything. There just wasn't enough. So I had to think of how I was going to do it. So what I did on this one was I stained the paper and glued it on, and then glued the image. And I thought it was quite effective. I think it really makes the image stand out. Another short page, another one of my flowers, which I love, and another collage. And I used what I had. I had a little bit of scrapbooking paper. This is the reverse, by the way. I didn't show you the reverse of the paper, did I? But it was, this pattern was on the reverse of the paper. It was double-sided. Okay, so now I was able to make one of these. This is my tag, and it's a double tag. And at the back there's some extra paper, and then this opens out, this, and like this, and like this. A whole sheet of paper for journaling. Yep. I remembered how to do it, which is quite amazing for me. I had to try a few times, but I got there in the end. So, come on, here we go, there you go. Okay, more stitching. My flowers, well, they're not uniform, and I think that adds the charm of the rustic feel of this journal. More ruffling. Aha, more couching. And this time, my precious lace, I took a small piece of it and I rolled it up, and I used that. I didn't want to do it again. My poor lace. But I think that worked. Another belly band, and you see one of my cutouts, and then we have a little folder. Nothing in it, but I didn't have anything to put in it, but it's useful for writing, etc. And one of the first of my paper lace ruffles. Oops. Ruffles. Here. Amazing how a whole strip, which is you know, quite a while long. I think it came back down to here. Can you see my finger pointing? No, but it was quite long. Only made, you know, I mean, I suppose I could have spread it out a bit more, but it's much more difficult to make ruffles with hand stitching than it is, especially if it's lace or fabric, than with my trusty sewing machine, which I did not have to use. Some more images, and I liked how I did this one as well. Another sheet of paper, some lace at the bottom, and then some stitching and the image. I thought that worked quite well as well. Another one of my lovely flowers, which I enjoyed making. Another tag, and this is empty because I didn't have anything to put in it, but never mind. Now, oh, what's happened here? Did I make that into a tuck? I must have done. I thought I glued it down, but clearly I didn't. And we have a tuck. And another one of the images and collages that I did. And that was on the sheet, so I utilised it. And you can see this was the reverse paper, and I just cut it out. More stitching, and this is a tuck, and then here we have a little booklet. Now this was ripped, and so I stitched it together. You know, you got to look after your resources, so it got stitched together, and it's just got a few sheets of paper. I told you there was lots to write on in here, and that tucks in there. And that's the end of my first signature. So, now I can tell you about the disaster. Not that I want to, but you need to kind of understand what happened. So, the last thing I did was create the spine. Wow! I didn't have a ruler. I used my little finger, and I still made it too wide. Now the reason I made it too wide is because I'm used to, well, my whole thing when I've been making these journals is I always make the spine too small. I always do, for some reason. And so on this occasion I made it too big. I made it too big. Oh, ridiculously big. Really ridiculously big. And as you can see, I've got 3 signatures now, and I've put a bit of left. This was the last piece of lace I had. It was just one long strip, and so I cut it into 2 and put 2 strips along there. And I had put the first signature in, which I've just showed you, and I put the second signature in, which I have yet to show you, but there was this huge gap in the middle, and I'm telling you, it looked ridiculous. So I had to put in a third signature to make it look reasonably unridiculous. And so this is my disaster signature because it's completely blank. I did not have time to do any embellishments whatsoever because I only had yesterday in which to create it and put it in. If I'd had more time, I would have embellished it. I would have put some tucks and pockets, etc., and made some more tags perhaps. But I ran out of time because the deadline is tomorrow. And I could still, but I'm not going to. I've got other things I need to be doing, and the time is getting on. Let's carry on. This is getting too long. Sorry. Another paper flower. This is the second signature, which is now the third, and I'll go through this fairly quickly. Another image, a flip out with some more stitching. Another couching, and I used a piece of the scrapbooking paper. This flips up, and we've got a tag. Now you'll see on here, this is when I started stenciling using the cutouts that I made. But as you'll probably agree, there's a little space tucking in there as well, a pocket there. You'll agree that actually gluing the cutouts really worked, I think. Now we have more buttons, paper buttons, and more stitching, and a belly band, and another booklet. And this is just a very small, thin, few pages booklet, and more stitching and an image on the front. More paper ruffling, another flip down, so there's plenty of room with some more stitching. And I made a paper bag out of the paper, and with a small tag with some of the cutout on. Another image. I sort of got a bit creative here, and I made some windows. Secret journaling. It was just wanted to do something a bit different, so that's what I did. This was fun. I did some stitching, and then I glued the pages together with the image on the other sheet. We just had some fun. And we have another pocket. This is the centre of the signatures, and I did some more weaving, and we have another tag. We have another pocket, whoops, with as you see, stenciling, but I still think that sticking the paper, cut out paper down was much more effective. But I started with the stenciling and didn't continue with it. So these were some of the earlier tags that I made, and as you can see, they're not quite round at the bottom. More stitching and another flip down. More paper ruffling and more stitching and another large tag. And then I struggled with this image. I think it was one of the ones I had earmarked for the front page, and then I didn't use it. I used the other one, and then I couldn't decide where to put it, and I was running out of pages, so I felt, well, I better put it somewhere. So this is where it ended up. And the other side of my paper bag with a tag in it. We have a corner flip and a tuck. More stitching, more stitching. Oh, I had a ball with the stitching. Another paper flower. Some more lace. Another belly band, another flower, and more space for writing. And then we have my label, which says handmade by Edwina Kinch for Nik the Booksmith's Deserted Island Challenge, November 2018. And that's the back page where I stuck one of the cutouts. So that is my journal for the challenge. It was fun, Nick. It was fun. I felt a bit sad when I had my disaster of making the spine too big. I mean, years ago I used to make notebooks, just plain notebooks all the time. I must have made hundreds of them, different sizes, 7 signatures, fabric covers, well, board that was covered with fabric, and they were stitched together, and I used recycled paper, but they were just blank inside, and they had no spine because I wanted the spine to be a feature. And I used to use hemp twine, different coloured twine, so that I would pick a colour that matched the fabric that I used. So I'm not as experienced as making spines. Really. I mean, I've tried. And I know how to do it. I mean, obviously we've got a cover with a spine, but it's just too wide. Anyway, I hope you like it. It is for sale, but I can't imagine anybody would want to buy it. I do not feel attached to it in any way. I've made it, as I said, as I approach all my journals, and limited supplies. Yeah, I go with it anytime. You can do so much, and it makes me appreciate all the massive supplies that I've got, which I need to give away. So look out for some racks coming your way as soon as I can get them organised. Okay, well, thanks for seeing me through this long video. I don't like long videos, sorry about it, but thanks for watching, for getting here with me, and thanks, Nick, for the challenge. It was great fun. There must be over 130, 40 people who've taken part. People have loved this. This is people who've not made journals before have taken part. I think it's fantastic. Okay, I'm off now. I'll say goodbye. Please leave a comment and tell me what you think. And I'll be back again sometime soon. Bye.